It is the place where we liberate you from the chaos of working in your business. You've reached the Business on Purpose podcast, the Business on Purpose platform. My name's Scott Beebe, the founder and the head coach of the Business on Purpose platform. And these next few podcasts are going to be really, really special. We do this on a regular basis down in the low country of South Carolina, where our geographical headquarters is. Our online headquarters is at mybusinessonpurpose.com, but we have the privilege of being able to serve small business owners, both locally and around the world. And locally, about every 3 months or so, we host an event, and we just provide it locally for our clients, the ones we get the privilege of being able to serve here in the low country, either with a lunch or, at the time of this recording, we just finished a half-day mid-year workshop where we really focused in on this one idea of what it means to be a heroic leader. And it wasn't just for the business owners we serve, but also for their key leaders. So we had a room full of about 40 people, all here in the low country of South Carolina, and it was a delightful time. And so you're going to hear a few sessions. I will be presenting in the first couple of sessions, and then you're going to hear a guy by the name of Jesse Cole. He is the co-owner with his wife of the Savannah Bananas, a minor league baseball team in Savannah, Georgia, and also the Gastonia Growl, a minor league baseball team in Gastonia right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I promise you want to hear what he has to say. Just remember this: fans first, entertain always, and your mind will be blown by the stories he shares. And I think it'll be really, really impactful. I know it will be incredibly impactful with these stories that he shares. And you'll want to hear and take these next few podcasts really as leadership training. So you listen for yourself, pass it around to your team. And we're delighted to be able to share this with you from our time in the Heroic Leadership Half-Day Workshop for the Business on Purpose clients, and we're delighted to have you be able to join in. And listen, if you need support in being liberated from the chaos of working in your business, let us know, mybusinessonpurpose.com, or just go to 4stepstobusinessfreedom.com. It's all spelled out, 4stepstobusinessfreedom.com, and you can check out there how we might be able to serve you. All right, dive in. Here you go. Hope you enjoy this session of this series of heroic leadership entitled, We Need You to Lead. And if you recall back to January, what we did is we did a meeting like this for business owners, and then we did a separate meeting like this for key leaders. And in the middle of the year, what we wanted to do is we wanted to be able to bring those two things together, because I want us to have some poignant's not the right word. I want us to have some honest conversation about some of the leadership things that we're going to talk about. And I thought it was important that everybody here together as you have those conversations. And so that's why we're doing it this way. It's because we're going to teach for a little bit, and then we're going to have you guys just talk amongst yourselves for a little bit. And then we're going to teach for a little bit more. You're going to talk for a little bit. So we're going to take this in just a few different sections. And I'll walk through all of that. If you don't mind, guys, let me just kind of pray over our time real quick. Those of you who know me, this is important to me, and I just want to make sure that we really leverage this time. If you're uncomfortable with it, that's all right. You can leave your eyes open. It doesn't matter. But just let me be brief and just pray over our time. God, would you give us a great time this morning, allow us to grow into great leaders that you've put inside of us, and help us to draw the skill out that you've given us to serve others. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. So here's what I want to do this morning. I want to make you a promise. And by the way, the reason we've got binders instead of booklets is because we knew we'd probably have too many people to have tables this morning, and we want you to be able to bear down on something. All right? So that's why you've got binders there. And we're going to walk you through this little workbook here in just a second. I'll tell you when to open. If you want to take notes, that's fine. But I want to make you a promise as we get started this morning. So over the next 3.5 hours, here's my guarantee to you and my promise to you. If you implement one thing, we're going to talk about a few things, but if you implement one thing from this morning, I promise you, I guarantee you that your life will be a little less chaotic tomorrow than it is today. All right? That's one promise I can make you. Because the thing we're going to talk about over and over and over and over and over again on repeat is implementation. And one of the reasons that we don't come up with a lot of rock star tools and things that take a lot of energy is because we realize that the more energy we put into that, the less energy that you've got to put into implementation. And I'm more interested in you implementing than I am in the cool factor of any tool that we put out or that you put out. And so implementation is going to be our focus this morning.
And that's my promise to you. If you can just get one thing, that's also why we've got the stick-it notes there. In each section we talk about this morning, I want you to write down one thing on the sticky note, put it on that sheet of paper, and at the end we're going to come back to that because you'll have a collection of things when we come back to that. So, before we get started, Danny B, before we get started, drove us out of bed this morning. What drove me out of bed this morning, what drove our small little business on purpose out of team this morning, our goal, and you'll see it on every single page, our goal is to liberate you from your chaos. That's it. That's what drives us out of bed in the morning, is to be able to liberate you from your chaos so that you can spend more time on what matters most. If you spend any time around me, you know mission is a priority. I was just telling Dave, when we were in Nigeria last week, there's a small little nonprofit organization, Care Africa, that we've been working with for about a year and a half. And we installed their mission statement to invest courage in the voiceless and the exhausted. That's their mission statement. It's literally on a stair step when you walk up the building into their new building. They had 7 interviews with caretakers last year. They place orphans in homes. They don't have an institutional care facility. They had 7 interviews with caretakers who've got kids who are hungry and all of that, and they only allowed 1 in last week. And there was a reason for it, and it's because their mission and their core values. Every interview, Ashley sat in on them, so she got to hear all this. Every interview they had with these caretakers, and these ladies were coming in like desperate. They have kids, they've got these kids that are not their own that they're taking care of. Every single interview they had, they would walk through and they would say, "Thank you so much for your application. We've read it, we've reviewed it, we've prayed over it. Thank you for your story. We've heard it. I want to tell you, you are definitely voiceless, but unfortunately you're not exhausted, and so you're not a fit for our program." Now some of you might go, "That is heartless." And I'm going to disagree with you and say absolutely not, because there are people that are both voiceless and exhausted, and if they would have taken every one of those people in, they would not have the resources to serve the people that their mission is for. Our mission is to liberate you from your chaos, and that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing this morning. And so that's my goal, is that by the time you walk out of here, you can implement one thing that will help liberate you just a little bit more tomorrow than you did today. So that's my guarantee to you. And that's what drove us out of bed. And the reason that I'm excited to be with this group of people is because we have a strong conviction that each of you is a hero based on the definition of what a hero is. All right? So for me to just tell you, "Hey, you're my hero," some of you are like, "Yeah, I knew that." Some of you are a little bit more, arrogant and that sort of thing. I knew I was, that I was your hero, Scott. But what I really mean by that, if you look at the definition of a hero, it's a person who is admired and idealized for their courage, or their outstanding achievements, or their noble qualities. That's it. A person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. So, as I'm thinking about what each of you do and what role each of you plays within the businesses and the organizations that you represent, I realize that on a random Tuesday afternoon, on our Thursday morning, you are going to be confronted with a decision and a challenge that you've got to make some assessment of, and sometimes make a courageous response. The courage that it takes to sit down and say no, or the courage that it takes to go with a new vendor over the existing vendor because of your vision, your mission, your core values. That takes courage, and the decisions that you make on a daily basis, you affect the livelihoods with the decision that you make. Do you realize that? So it's not just the business owners that do that. But because you're a key leader, every decision you make affects the livelihood of somebody else who's impacted by the decision you make. That should come with a weight and a responsibility. And that's why that's a heroic decision for us. And so our privilege is to be able to serve heroes. Not in the sense that you went on a battlefield and fought in the military. In a different sense is that you're on the battlefield of the business platform, and you're fighting these things all day long, and you're having to work through these things through the lens of the mission and the core values that you have. And so we get to serve you, and it's our honor to be able to do that. So here's the opportunity that I want us to be able to confront today. If you'll notice the front part of your binder when you came in, it simply says, "We need you to lead." That's the rally cry for today. That's what we want to go out with today. Is that when you walk out of the door, I want you to realize that I don't want to just inspire you to be a leader. I don't want to motivate you to be a leader. What I'm telling you is we need you to lead. It's not optional. Because of the responsibility you have, the platform you've been given, we need you to lead. And in leadership, we're going to walk you through a step-by-step approach to identify some of the things that you can pull out. So by the time 12 o'clock hits today, you can walk out of the door and go, this is the one thing I can work on. And so that's our goal this morning. Statistically, we've got to understand that any of you who've gone through the DISC profile stuff with us, you've realized that only 14% of the entire world have been born with a bent to be active in their personality. That means 86% of every human being that's walking around, including some people in this room, you've been bent with a mindset of passivity, to stand back. It's not wrong, by the way. Passivity is a great trait. Can you imagine a world filled with Donald Trumps? Just all active, all going, no filtration system. Some of you just rolled your eyes. Sorry. Can you imagine a world where that's all you get is this, constantly? Go, 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 go. Value to people who are able to sit back and to receive instruction. But just because you're passive and you're capable to receive instruction does not mean we don't need you to lead. So we've got a world of followers. We've got a world of people waiting to receive instruction for something greater. More than 70%, in one of the latest Gallup polls, 70% of employees are totally disengaged in their work. 7 out of 10 of employees are currently, I think it's actually higher than that, are disengaged in their work. That means they wake up Monday and they're miserable. They wake up Tuesday and they're miserable. They wake up Wednesday and they're miserable. And they do that every single day. Remember that advertisement? It's time to make the donuts. He just wakes up and he goes in and he makes the donuts. 7 out of 10 statistically who are working in our businesses right now, and I hope it's different for this room, 7 out of 10 are waking up and they're making the donuts every day. That's why we need you to lead. It's because the business owner can't lead by themselves. They'll be exhausted. You got to have marginal time for the owner to run out front, to go, hey, I'll be back in a week. I got to go look for new things. But in the meantime, I need you to lead. And so we need you to lead. What happens when you lift the emergency brake from a car that's sitting on a hill in Nigeria that has no functioning brakes to begin with? That thing rolls down, right? And so when we disengage from our work, the business just begins to scatter. That's why I always go back to that Proverbs, where there's no vision, people scatter. And when people scatter, they eventually just kind of run out of gas and they die. And so we need you to lead because we need people to be engaged. We don't want outside forces to take over. When you get into a mindset of apathy and just kind of let that go, the gravity takes over. Something will take over in the lack of your leadership. So if there's a vacuum of leadership, there's an outside force that is ready and willing to step in on your lack of leadership's behalf. And it will always come in. And I can't tell you what it is because it's different for everybody, but I can tell you this, it's not headed towards the vision. So if you disengage from your work, if you choose, I'm not going to lead, and instead I'm just going to kind of make the donuts, then what happens is outside forces take in that will push you somewhere, but statistically it's not going to push you towards the vision. And where there is no vision, people scatter. That's why we need you to lead. Here's the culture, and Seth Godin talks about this a lot. If you've not listened to Seth Godin or read any of his stuff, just type Seth. This is how big his blog is. Just type Seth in Google. That's it. Seth. And his blog will come up. He's blogged every day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for 15 years. He's done the work. And what he talks about a lot is he said, we live in a culture where people are waiting around like in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and they're going, pick me. Pick me. And so what we did is we went and got our master's degrees so that the corporation would pick us. We worked on a specific project so the corporation would pick us. But now don't you realize you've got your own mass media channel through YouTube and Facebook Live? It's there. Your own television station is right in front of you. Your own broadcast station is right in front of you. You don't have to wait to be picked. You're picked. And that's why we need you to lead, is you don't have to wait. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to sit and dream. And that's why I want to go back to what I started with. You'll hear me say this, and you've heard me say this before. Joe Calloway said, vision without implementation is hallucination. Vision without implementation is hallucination. I grew up in Portland, Oregon for a little while, and I would be in the car with my dad. We'd go out somewhere on Saturday or whatever, and I noticed this field was over there. And 90% of the time, nobody was ever in the field, but periodically, there were cars everywhere, and there were people all in the field. And I remember asking my dad, I was like, hey, Dad, what's like, why are those people in the field bent over like this? And he said, oh, they're picking some stuff. I said, well, what are they picking? You know, I was 12 years old. You tell my dad was kind of uncomfortable, and he said, well, they're picking like vegetables. I said, what kind of vegetables are they picking? Well, they're mushrooms. I was like, why are all those people picking mushrooms? And he said, well, son, and that's kind of when we had not the birds and the bees talk, we had that awkward moment later on, but we had this kind of talk about, this crazy, funky drugs that people can get into, and they were picking mushrooms to hallucinate from. Right there. But it's Portland, right? The most famous bumper sticker in Portland is Keep Portland Weird. And so I got to live there for a few years and see that. Vision without implementation is no different than picking mushrooms in a field in Oregon. It's hallucination. But if you can implement, if you can take that action item and go, I'm going to do this and not that, or that. Because we've got options everywhere, don't we? The funniest phone call we got while we were in Nigeria last week was from a little boy who's been adopted by some friends of ours. They live in North Carolina. And this little boy asked his mom, Katie, to call us to bring him Milo milk powder and crunchy corn from Nigeria. My man can walk into any grocery store in North Carolina and get 6,000 options of cereal. And he wanted this crappy Milo, which I've had, and it tastes horrible to me, and crunchy corn. That's it. And so we came back with a bag filled of Milo and crunchy corn for this little kid. And so we've got all these options. There's options to do anything you want. You can have a checklist right in front of you, a job-ready checklist for your day to day, and then you go, you know what? I could do that or that or that or that or that or that or that. No. Implement one thing. Implement one thing. So let's set some ground rules for today. Number one, this is a bureaucracy-free zone, all right? I just want us to all have a silent agreement on that this is a bureaucracy-free zone, which means it is a we've always done it that way free zone, all right? That statement will not be allowed in this room for the next 3.5 hours. We've always done it that way, and I think we should, no. Kill it, murder it, put it in the grave. We're not going to think that way. Which means that this is going to be an I don't know if I can do that zone. We'll channel our inner Obama and go, yes, we can. No, I'm teasing. But if you've got the opportunity to do it, if you've got the vision to be able to do something like that, then let's create the process for it. Is that not what we talk about all the time? I know you guys are sick of hearing me talk about vision, mission, value, systems, process. Vision, mission, value, systems. Yes, they work. They work here, they work in Nigeria, they work in Croatia, they work in South Africa, they work all around the world. These are principles we're talking about, not strategies. We'll talk about a strategy later. These are principles. These will work in any decade, at any time, at any place. Strategies work today and not tomorrow. Principles work for the longevity. This is also a no sit on my hands and let other people take care of it zone. We're not going to do that. We're going to take ownership. Some of you guys have read the Treasury team up here. They went through a whole thing with their team where they read Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. The guy looks like a Marine. I mean, looks like he's got 6-inch thick leather on his face. You look at the guy, listen to his pie. He's intense. But you know what he said every time through every single story in that book, Extreme Ownership? It didn't matter what happened, whose fault it was, he always took responsibility. And that's what I want us to do. Don't blame him, don't blame her, don't blame the process, don't blame any of that. You go, you know what? The process failed because I didn't build it well enough, so we're going to build it better. Just got done reading another book by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. And so here's the other ground rule I want to set for this morning. And that is, the obstacles that you face, the failures that you feel, we're not going to run from those. We're not going to yell at each other for those. Instead, what we're going to do is go, wait a second, that's the way. So whatever just happened, the frustration I felt yesterday, when I had too many phone calls coming in at me all the time, that obstacle, that frustration, there's something in that we need to find. We're not going to run away from it. And so that's what we're going to do this morning. So, what are we going to do today? One thing, one step to become a heroic leader. That's our goal. So we implement one step, not 15 steps, not 13 strategies, not 8 healthy steps for a new, you, better, whatever, healthier skin. One thing. And that one thing is going to be directly tied to the vision of the organization. If you don't know what the vision of the organization is, you go straight back to your business owner as soon as you leave, blame it on me, and ask him. And then tell him, I think it'd be a great idea to embed that vision into our weekly meetings so that we revisit it every week. One thing. So, there's a lot that we could discuss. Let me kind of explain the framework of the morning and how we're going to do it and why I wanted Jesse to be here as well and why that's important. A few of us went to EntreLeadership a couple months ago, and we heard some world-class speakers. Dave Ramsey, Lou Holtz, John Maxwell, Pat Lencioni. I mean, these guys were world-class. They were unbelievable. And we were all just feeding, like everything they brought us. We were like, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. And some of the guys have taken that back, and they've put that into a kind of an outline, and they're actively going through that with their team. And so there's a lot of things from that conference I could talk about and piecemeal that together. John Maxwell gave us 5 things. He said, every day I learn. Every day I read. Every day I write. Every day I reflect. And every day I share. That was brilliant. I've shared that thing probably 50 times since I've been back because it works. We could talk about that. We could talk about how John Maxwell said if you want to have uphill goals, then you're going to have uphill challenges. The problem is most of us have downhill habits. And he's right. Pierce and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about some uphill challenges. How do you get up there? And I said, well, you walk uphill. What do you do when you walk uphill? Your thighs burn, you breathe hard, you start sweating. So why do we get mad when it's hard? Why do we go, oh, this is so hard? Yeah, it's hard. You're going uphill. Your thighs are on fire. You're sweating. You're breathing heavy. Oh, it's just the customers. Yeah, you're going uphill. Create a new process for that. Reflect back on the vision with that. This ain't easy. This nonsense that you guys see on Facebook of make $6 billion in 30 minutes and never work again. I mean, honest, is that what you want your life to be? No, come on, guys. We're surrounded by people who had the dream of retirement, right? And they came down here. Anybody want to just go randomly hang out in Sun City? I don't. Not interested. Right? Because a lot of times they wake up and there's nothing in front of them that's going to challenge them uphill. And so what takes over in downhill? Gravity. Some directional force that's going to put them somewhere that has nothing tied to the vision. So we could talk about that. Lou Holtz said this. This is so powerful. Remember this with your kids. Lou Holtz said, I've never disciplined a student athlete, and I've never disciplined my own children my entire life. And of course, we're like, come on now. I mean, you're Lou Holtz. And he said, the only thing I've ever done is enforced their own choice. That's all I've ever done. So if you want to call a female escort service as the head coach of an SEC football team, you've given me no choice but to enforce your decision. And so I have to let you go, like just happened at Ole Miss a couple days ago. Does that mean that the leadership at Ole Miss was mad at the coach? They're probably frustrated. But no, he made a decision, so now they're enforcing their own choice. We could talk about that. We could talk about uphill challenges with downhill habits. We could talk about what Dave Ramsey said when he said 5 times over again, and he said, the train's going this way. The train's going this way. The train's going this way. And his whole point was referring back to Andy Stanley, who says it takes 21 times to repeat your vision before people start to even hear it, let alone embedded into the culture of your business. We could talk about all that, but you guys hear me talk about that all the time. And I'm going to keep talking about it all the time because it works. So we could talk about all those things. But recently, I read another book. It's a fascinating book. I wanted to put it up. I thought you guys get a laugh out, but it really is a fascinating book by Stephen Pressfield that's called No One Wants to Read Your Blank. It's right there on the title. In his book, No One Wants to Read Your Blank. S.H. T. I was like, that's a fascinating book. So I got it, started to read it. And what I realized in reading the book, because it caught my attention, is he laid out something in the book that was totally unexpected. The title grabbed me, and I began to walk through the book. And he talks about the 10 stages that every movie, every screenplay, every play, every novel, any bit of visual or written entertainment that you've ever consumed follows these 10 steps. And so I read that a while back, and I thought, wait a second, we could build the whole morning around those 10 steps, and we could create this as kind of a movie, a screenplay that we can all fill in, follow the adventure, realize that we're the hero, we're the main character, and walk through this thing. And so that's what we're going to do. So let me show you the outline this morning. We're going to have a beginning. I've given you just the prelude just now. I think that's what they call it. The prelude, the beginning, the trailer, if you will. Now what we're going to do is we're going to follow the script the rest of the morning. We're going to start with the outline, all right? And outline has a beginning, middle, and end. Of every story you've ever watched, listened to, movie you've watched, anything, it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And in the beginning, what we do is we get introduced to the hero in an ordinary world. And then that hero receives a call to adventure. And then the hero rejects the call, right? Walks away from the call. And kind of wants to go back to anonymity. But we've got to pull that hero out because we need that hero to work. And that leads to the middle section of what we're going to talk about. And that's why I wanted Jesse here, is because Jesse's done something with a group of people in a business model that is notorious for falling apart. And it's worked. And I'm fascinated by it. And if you've ever been to a Savannah Bananas game, you walk in and you go, oh my God, how'd they do that? They really do that? You can eat all you can eat for $15 or something like that? That's crazy. And watch decent baseball. And when I walk into the stadium, the players are in uniform standing outside with banana tickets. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And so I feel like what Jesse can do for us this morning is the middle part of the story where this kind of mentor emerges. You know, the Obi-Wan Kenobi? I don't want to inflate your head, Jesse, but so Obi-Wan Kenobi emerges, right? Out of the shadows. We didn't know he existed, and here he comes. And so he emerges, and then the hero agrees to kind of go along with the mentor. But the hero begins to encounter enemies. And so that's what we're going to have Jesse talk about, is how has he built what he's built? What are the kind of the roadblocks or the enemies he's come across that he's had to jump those things, and allow him to kind of mentor us a little bit through his story of what they built both here and also up in Gastonia, because it's pretty impressive. And then that'll take us into the end of the story. And the end of the story is where the hero confronts the villain. You've got the moment, right? There's always a moment in every story where the hero confronts the villain, and then the hero escapes the villain. And we're like, oh, thank God, he got out of that. But then the villain comes back. And then finally, at the end, the hero triumphs. But then there's that little last bit of the trailer that's the dun, 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 dot, 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 soon to come, or the next whatever. And we're like, oh, I thought that was over. You know, he won. I thought he was lost. He was down for the count. Rocky came back. And now he's got another guy to fight? That happens in every single story that we've ever watched. And so we're going to model that story this morning on the route to our goal of one thing. So I'm going to lead us through the first section, the beginning. Jesse's going to lead us through the second section, the middle. And then I'm going to close us out with the end, where you, the hero, are going to triumph by 12 o'clock today, because you're going to go implement one thing on the way out. I wish I had the dun, 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 or whatever to play us out of here. Maybe we can find that. So anyway, all right, so I've talked about what Jesse's going to provide for us. I talked about where I'm going to start, and we're going to finish. So remember, our goal: one actionable, implementable item for you to begin working on by 12 o'clock today. So go ahead and open your books. Let's start with that first part. We're going to introduce ourselves to the hero of the story. Now, if you've already started flipping through your book, you're going to have superhero confusion, because you're going to realize, wait a second, does Luke Skywalker go with Batman? There were some superheroes I thought were a better fit for the particular point, which is why I used them there. So just hang with me, right? We're not making an actual movie. So just got to give me a little grace this morning. So let's visit our hero in an ordinary world. So our hero in an ordinary world, we just kind of find the guy walking around, right? We walk into one of your businesses, and there you are doing QuickBooks. There you are running job checklists. There you are running spreadsheets. There you are making customer phone calls. I mean, you're just kind of doing it, right? And you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. You've got your checklist. You've got your job role. If you work in a business on purpose, you understand the vision of where the company's going. You've got the job role so you know what to do. You've got your processes in place so you know exactly the specific things to either do directly or delegate. And then you rinse and repeat, right? Rinse and repeat. And so Monday next week kind of looks like Monday of last week. And the Monday of the following week kind of looks like Monday of the previous week and the previous week. And so if you're doing Revit drawings this Monday, you do Revit drawings next Monday. If you're doing tractor maintenance this Tuesday, then you're doing tractor maintenance next Tuesday. And it's a rinse and repeat. And a rinse and repeat. Over and over and over again. And so that's where we meet our hero. And our hero uses phrases like this. Hey man, I'm just living for the weekend. I'm just working to live, man. Just working to live. Working to get that paycheck, dog. Some people might say dog. I like to say dog. I'm just living for the weekend. That's what I'm doing. And so they're showing up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to punch a clock, to do a job, to take a paycheck, so that they can run to leisure, which is overrated anyway. That's where we meet our hero. Here's something that's interesting. We are pre-programmed to gripe about work and to overinflate leisure. I want you to hear me say that again. We are pre-programmed. Why? Because a lot of times we heard our parents say it. Got to go to the job again. Got to do the 9 to 5. You know? And so when we get like 18, 19, 20, this passion in us that is, man, I can change the world. Why do you think the disciples of Jesus were 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old? They're the ones infused with passion because by the time we get to 40, we can't see straight and we're out of energy. And we think, well, man, this guy just coast to the end. If he could just get me to the end and retirement, let me go live in Palmetto Cove or whatever one of those neighborhoods are, and I'm going to play golf 364 days a year. I'm going to save one for Jesus. I knew a guy that played 364 rounds of golf 3 years ago. I know his name. I know exactly where he lives on that island. You want to know what I think hell looks like? Playing golf 364 days a year. That's what I think hell looks like. That sounds like misery to me. Not because of the golf, although I hate golf. But Jarek and I together, man, we're a machine when we get out there at golf. We don't score well. We just hit balls all over the place. And so that's our goal. It's to see how far off we can get the balls when we get up and how far out we can do that. But this is the mindset where we meet our hero. I just show up, get the job done. Man, I just do my work. We meet the hero in the silo. We meet the hero with statements like, I'm working to live. We meet the hero punching in and punching out, not realizing that there is something out there that they can be great at. Not realizing that we need you to lead. And so that's where we meet the hero. So here's what I want to do. I want to take a little break. And I want you guys to meet in your teams. You just kind of circle up your chairs or whatever. And again, we've got snacks, drinks, coffees over here. Bathroom is both here and there's one upstairs, by the way, if you need a little bit more privacy. But I want you to meet in your teams for about 10 minutes. And there's a discussion question at the end of that first sheet, at the very bottom there, right next to our mission statement, because I want that thing ingrained in your head by the time we leave here. But the discussion question is this. If you had a mindset to just do your job, what's the consequence of that? So if you or anybody in your team has the mindset of let's just do our job. And I'm not asking you, some of you have gone to like Sunday school when you grew up, and somebody asks you a question, hey, what's the purpose in life? And you go, man, I got three possibilities. It's either God, Jesus, or prayer. If I say one of those, I got a 90% shot of getting it right. All right? Don't answer that way with this stuff. Get in there, dig in, really, honestly, because most likely you've got team members who either under their breath or overtly say things like this. I'm just working to live. And if you had a business that was infused with a mindset of just do your job, just do your job, I want you to think of the pragmatic output of that. What is the consequence of that mindset in your business long term?
I hope that was helpful. Make sure to check out the other episodes of this podcast series within the Business on Purpose podcast, focused on heroic leadership. We need you to lead. So what's your one big takeaway? Why? Because we need you to lead. Hey, we're here serving people just like you, small business owners, liberating you from your chaos. Let us know how we can serve you at the Business on Purpose platform. Head on over to mybusinessonpurpose.com or 4stepstobusinessfreedom.com, all spelled out, and we'll see you there.